We're just 2 days away from Texas and Texas A&M. We preview the Lone Star Showdown with the host of Locked On Aggies. That's coming up next on Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you're locked on to the Texas Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, BK, Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Without further ado, our crossover with the host of Locked On Aggies. It's a Locked On crossover alongside Matt Galatzan of Locked On Aggies. I am BK, Brad Kellner of Locked On Longhorns, and we are getting you set for Friday night's Lone Star Showdown. Texas and Texas A&M meeting in Austin for the first time since 2010. Of course, just the second year since the Longhorns joined the SEC, and so much is on the line this Friday night. Texas A&M fighting for a spot in the SEC championship game. The Longhorns fighting for a spot in the college football playoff. This game is always a big deal, but it feels even bigger here in 2025. Matt, I guess right off the bat, Texas A&M is 11-0, ranked number 3 in the country. It's the best season the Aggies have had in a long, long time. What's been the biggest key to their success so far?
I think it has to be their resiliency and their ability to win games in a bunch of different ways, right? They've won games that are defensive battles and really tough at the line of scrimmage. They've won games that are shootouts. They've had to come from behind from 27 points down. They've dominated opponents. So they've done it in a variety of ways, and they've been very resilient. I think that offensively, it's really started with Marcel Reed and his ability to get the ball to those receivers, and those receivers have been incredibly explosive in space and in getting downfield and making people miss. And it's just been an incredibly hard offense to stop, a very versatile offense, and that's really what's been driving them. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they've been very solid too. Cassius Howell leads the SEC in sacks. The secondary has improved. Torian York has been playing out of his mind, and they've had some players step up after some big losses from last season. So it's really just been an all-around effort in every way, shape, and form. And I think it's honestly Mike Elko's best coaching job as well.
Yeah,
he's really
Matt,
kept these guys focused.
Excuse me. Yeah, Matt, I'll be honest. I've been eating crow about Marcel Reed all season long, right? I mean, the step that he has taken from where he was in 2024 to where he's been all year in 2025. I mean, he's been the straw that stirs the drink for Texas A&M this season. Where has he progressed the most? Why is he so much better in year 2 versus what he was a season ago?
Well, I think that for one thing, the speed of the game has slowed down for him a whole hell of a lot. Last year, if you got pressure on him, he got happy feet. He kind of made mistakes. He would just tuck the ball and run. This year, I don't think that they've really necessarily simplified the offense, but things have slowed down. They figured out things that really work well for him. The receivers have honestly helped a lot, but he's making a lot better decisions with the football. His mechanics have cleaned up a whole heck of a lot. And he's been clutch. He's been making throws when it counts, and that's why he's in the top 4 for the Heisman right now. If I had to vote right now, he'd be in New York. I don't have a vote, unfortunately. Otherwise, he probably would get one for me. But hey, it is what it is. He's matured so much, and his teammates have bought into him so much that I think that it's really had a effect around the team in terms of just their belief in him and his ability to lead this football team, and it's been really big for them.
Yeah, Matt, you talked about a couple of those wide receivers. I mean, I've got portal envy with some of the guys that A&M brought in last offseason, Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver. I mean, I thought those guys would be good. Aggie fans thought those guys would be good. I don't think anybody saw this coming. Those guys are 2 of the best wide receivers in college football. Their numbers tell the whole story. They have been difference makers. What has made them, obviously opposing defensive coordinators have known for a while how good those guys are, and they still can't stop them. What has made those dudes so explosive and electric all season long?
The speed, the versatility, the agility, the quickness, the route running, those guys both have it in spades, man. And it's really, really been impressive to watch. Texas A&M likes to run a lot of quick stuff offensively in terms of like the quick passing game. And if you give those guys an inch of space, they can make you miss and they can take it the distance. They've also been really good in running their deep routes and getting open down there. Marcel Reed has been accurate with the football for the most part, getting them the football in good positions to win against a lot of good passing defenses. I know the records say that Texas A&M has played 7 of the bottom 8 teams in the SEC, but some of those defenses have been really good, particularly against the pass. They've been able to succeed anyway. And, again, the clutch factor with them has been unbelievable. It seems like every time Texas A&M needs to make a play in the passing game, Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver are right there. Ashton Bethel-Roman, a really young receiver, is making big plays. And, even Isaiah Williams has made a couple plays here and there. So they just show up when it matters. And that's kind of a theme with this team is when they need it most, it happens. And everybody's doing it at a collective level, but especially those receivers. And the funny thing is, probably the 2 best transfer receivers in college football this season both play for the same team. A lot of people forget Texas A&M had another one at the beginning of the season, Micah Hudson, that decided to go back to Texas Tech. They could have had 3, so it could have been even more explosive, which is kind of crazy to think about.
That's a scary thought right there. So what about this matchup, man? I know you've been paying a lot of attention to Texas throughout the season and definitely this week leading up to this game. The Longhorns have struggled defensively, especially in the secondary over the last month of the season. Do you think that's an obvious advantage, the A&M passing offense going up against the Texas passing defense with what we've seen from both of these teams here down the stretch?
I think it is an advantage for Texas A&M, and I'll tell you why. The games that I've watched of Texas over the last few weeks, really since the Kentucky game, I feel like they've been playing a lot of soft coverage and giving these receivers on the opposing offenses a lot of space, particularly on the opposite side of Texas's best corner, Manny Muhammad, and that's been eating them alive, especially against Georgia. They were giving them way too much space. And the Georgia receivers were catching the ball and turning it into yak yards and getting explosive plays. And they've also had kind of very questionable eye discipline at the safety position over the last couple of weeks. And both of those things are things that Texas A&M has taken advantage of against their opposition all season long. So in that particular scenario, yes, I do think Texas A&M has a pretty big advantage there. And if I'm not mistaken, Texas is going to be starting a true freshman corner opposite of Muhammad this week in Cade Phillips. So how is he going to react to going up against a KC Concepcion or a Mario Craver? How is he going to handle that kind of route running and that kind of speed? We'll have to see, but it's certainly an advantage for Texas A&M in that realm.
Yeah, Texas probably starting 2 freshman corners this weekend. Now, one of them's Grayson Littleton. He's started every game since week 1. But, Cade Phillips was 3rd on the Longhorns in snaps in their most recent game against Arkansas. So he has kind of taken over as that number 2 corner opposite of Manny Muhammad. And if I'm Colin Klein, look, I know you trust both of those receivers, but whoever's going up against the true freshman, that's the guy I want to go to pretty much all night long on Friday. So that's a matchup that I, as a Texas fan, am definitely nervous about. What about the Aggie run game, Matt? I mean, Le'Veon Moss, Mike Elko told us on Monday that he's probably not going to play, considering he's missed the last 5 games. Maybe I should believe him, but part of me thinks maybe there's a little gamesmanship going on with this rivalry. And Reuben Owens sat out against Samford. Sounds like he's going to play. E.J. Smith sat out, easy for me to say, against Samford. Sounds like he's going to play. But where is A&M at with its run game in terms of health going into Friday night?
Well, it's really nice to play Samford in that part of the season, right? Last week, because you get an opportunity to rest some guys. Reuben Owens is going to be good to go. I don't think Le'Veon Moss is going to play. My guess is that it's not gamesmanship, but you never know with this rivalry what things might bring. But my guess is you'll see a heavy dose of Le'Veon Moss, Amari Daniels, maybe some of the true freshmen, Jamarion Morrow, and some E.J. Smith as well. They've got a really deep running back room outside of Moss. The difference is when they do have Moss, he's the power back. He's the hammer and that runs in between the tackles and can get you the tough yards that you really need, right? These other guys, they can do some of those things, but they really thrive in the more outside zone running game and in the more explosive types of running plays, the speed, particularly Reuben Owens, who's one of the most explosive running backs in the country. So it'll be a little bit different in terms of what Texas A&M fans are used to throughout the majority of the season with Le'Veon Moss, but they have a lot of confidence in Aggie land about Reuben Owens, and really the emergence of Jamarian Morrow has been huge for them as well. But they're 4 deep at the position, and they can beat you in a lot of different ways. Plus, Marcel Reed, as good as he's been throwing the football this year, his best asset might be his legs. So they can run it at you in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, last question for this opening segment, Matt. I kind of want to talk about that matchup, right? Going into Texas's most recent game against Arkansas, the Longhorns had a top 5 rush defense in America. Arkansas had a lot of success against Texas, especially in the first half, right? The Longhorns kind of cleaned it up in the second half as Texas sort of built their lead and kind of put that game away. But Arkansas ran it for 188 yards against the Longhorns. That's the most Texas has given up in an SEC game all season. Obviously, like Marcel Reed, Arkansas has a dual threat quarterback in Talon Green who was able to have success on the ground. How are you feeling about this matchup? Is there an obvious advantage when it comes to the Aggie rush O against the Texas rush D?
Yeah, I think that part of that has to do with the absence of Anthony Hill last week for Texas. I think that played probably a pretty big role in that. But also, Texas has had some issues with their run fits over the last couple of weeks. Georgia ran it against them pretty effectively. Everybody's been able to run against them pretty effectively over the last couple of weeks. So, I think Texas A&M is probably better equipped than any team they faced this year to run the football against them with their offensive line. They're 6 deep across the offensive line. They've got guys that can play in multiple positions. Armaj Reed Adams is one of the best guards in the country. So this game is really going to come down to who wins in the trenches, and I think that Texas A&M has an advantage offensively in the trenches for sure. And they should be able to get a push against that Texas offensive line, and I think that that's going to play a major difference. They're really good at dealing with stunts and run blitzes. They're really good at pulling for outside runs. They're really good at just the power running game. So I would expect Texas A&M to have some success on the ground, if not, maybe not to the level that Arkansas did without Anthony Hill in there, but I do think that they're going to be pretty dang successful in that area.
Yeah, and Texas linebacker Ty Anthony Smith will miss the first half of Friday's game after he was ejected in the third quarter against Arkansas because of a targeting penalty. So Anthony Hill likely coming back from that broken bone in his hand, but the Longhorns still a little bit shorthanded, at least for the first 30 minutes. All right, let's flip the script. We'll talk about the Longhorn offense led by Arch Manning going up against the Texas A&M defense and continue to preview this game. Of course, we'll give our game score predictions as well before we wrap things up right here on a crossover episode. It's Locked On Longhorns and Locked On Aggies.
The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into same-game parlays for a bigger shot at a payout. Keeps every game more exciting, especially when your team's making a late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Back, Locked On Longhorns, Locked On Aggies, crossover episode, getting you set for Friday night's kickoff between Texas and Texas A&M. A happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you tuned in out there. Please remember to like, subscribe to the channels, leave comments, all of those great things. We really do appreciate y'all's continued support of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, Matt, in segment 1, we talked about the Aggie offense against the Longhorn defense. Let's flip the script here. Man, Arch Manning has been playing some really, really good ball as of late, coming off of what I think was the best game of his college career in Texas's 52-37 victory over Arkansas. 6 touchdowns for Arch, 4 through the air, 1 on the ground, had a receiving touchdown as well. Obviously, his early season struggles were discussed by everybody in the country. I think a lot of folks closed the door on Arch Manning, but he's really figured some things out. Texas A&M's defense, they haven't done a lot wrong, but they have been susceptible to some big chunk plays at times through the air. Your thoughts on Arch Manning and the Texas passing offense going up against the Aggie pass defense?
Well, in terms of Arch Manning himself, I think that he really turned a corner. I think the Mississippi State game was probably the game that really things started to make sense for him and really started to fit with him. I think Steve Sarkisian kind of figured out the best way to utilize him in this passing game. And it feels like over the last few weeks, really for the entire season that he's been their offensive MVP, because they haven't had a great offensive line. They haven't had the best success with their receivers with drops and route running and all this different stuff. So I've been impressed with the way he's bounced back from his early season struggles. That being said, this is probably going to be the best pass defense that he has faced since Oklahoma. Georgia has been susceptible to the pass even. Obviously, Vanderbilt, it has not been the best pass defense in the country. Mississippi State, Kentucky have not been the best. So this is going to be his toughest test, in my opinion. Texas A&M has two really, really good corners on the outside in Des Ricks and Will Lee III. They've got a really good nickel in Tyreek Chappelle. Their safeties have been playing at a really, really high level. So this will be a challenge. They have been susceptible to some big plays, particularly explosives down the field. And I think that part of that has to do with just the turnover in the secondary. There's been a little bit there. They lost Bryce Anderson early in the season, and it's taken a couple of these guys some time to kind of get into the mode of, okay, we're gonna go out there and we're gonna compete at a high level. And they've done that over the last couple of weeks. They really shut down Missouri. South Carolina got a couple of big plays on them in the first half, but then in the second half, they really locked things down and were able to stifle Lenora Sellers and Nick Harbor. So when things have gotten tough for them, that pass defense has really, really locked down, and it's a much, much improved unit over what we saw against Notre Dame earlier in the year. So they're really good at being physical as well. They're not going to let you be physical with them off the line. They're going to challenge those receivers in the quick passing game and all those different things. So it should be a very interesting matchup for Texas and Texas A&M in that regard. I really think that this is going to be the game where we figure out if Arch Manning is really what we've all thought he's been over the last few weeks. And that's a testament to Texas A&M's defense and the way they've played over the last few weeks.
Yeah, and Texas hasn't been able to run the football at all. So it does feel like if the Longhorns are going to pull off an upset on Friday night, it's going to have to rely on the shoulders of Arch Manning. And, this has to do with the run game. This also has to do with the passing game. From a Texas standpoint, Matt, the matchup that scares me the most in this football game, the Longhorn offensive line, which has been up and down all season. And I'm probably being too nice saying up and down. It's really been down and down all season. Against the Aggie defensive front, that's second in the country in sacks per game. You mentioned Cassius Howell in the first segment. He leads the SEC in sacks. He's playing at an All-American level. Like that right there on paper to me is the biggest separator in this football game. And if Texas doesn't bring its hard hat to work on Friday night, then the Longhorn offense, it's not going to matter how good they've been as of late. They're not going to be able to get anything going against A&M.
Yeah, and I think that probably the best part of the Texas A&M defense, they've been solid at all three levels, but I think the best part of that Texas A&M defense has been their defensive line, just in my opinion. I mean, people could disagree with me, but that's just my view. TJ Searcy has been really good. Tyler Nyedem has been really good. Albert Regis has been really good. The other freshmen D tackles have been good. Marco Jones, a true freshman edge, has been good. But Cassius Howell has been really, really special. He's got at least a sack in every SEC game this year. He's quick. He's twitchy. He's powerful. He's intimidating. He talks a lot of smack. And the Texas offensive tackles wouldn't necessarily be as much of a concern to me because I feel like they've played better. I think where Texas A&M has the advantage is on the interior specifically, and I think that Texas A&M is probably going to try and stunt and twist and do a lot of those different things to take, or to put some pressure on that Texas left guard position, that center position, and those kinds of things, because that's where Texas, in my view, has been really susceptible, and I think Texas A&M can really take advantage of it.
I'm with you on that. Yeah, Texas has really struggled to run the football, right? I mean, Trey Wisner last year in College Station had an unbelievable performance, 33 carries for 186 yards. Texas as a team went for nearly 250 in College Station, but obviously this year has been a different story for the Longhorn run game. I mean, Trey Wisner through 11 games this year hasn't even cracked 450 yards rushing, and he leads Texas on the ground this season. If you're Mike Elko, Matt, you're coming up with this game plan for Friday night, are you even respecting the Texas run game? Like, are you saying, we're going to put a light box in there. We're going to dare you to run against us. We don't want Arch to beat us, and good luck. Like, for me, I'm not sure I'm putting any extra defenders in the box to try to slow down Texas, because the Longhorns have been so bad in that department that I have no faith that they're going to be able to figure that out against A&M.
Well, I think that puts a lot of pressure on the A&M secondary, but and that's also what Arkansas tried to do. That's what Vanderbilt tried to do, and it didn't work particularly well because Arch Manning carved them up. Georgia was a little bit different. Georgia was able to get that done, and I think that Texas A&M their personnel up front is more comparable to Georgia's than to Arkansas and Vanderbilt, obviously. So I think that kind of has to be the game plan. Make Arch Manning beat you. I think that they'll have success getting after that Texas offensive line, particularly with Cassius Howell and TJ Searchie, and maybe bringing a linebacker occasionally like Damian Sanford or Torian York.
Yeah.
You can sit back in coverage against this team. I don't personally think that they're going to run a whole lot of aggressive stuff in the secondary. I think that they're comfortable, just playing some man and making these receivers beat them at the line and make them beat you is my game plan if I'm Texas A&M, because against good defenses like Oklahoma and like Georgia, this Texas offense has struggled to get separation off the line. So make them do it. And I think Texas A&M is going to be pretty successful in that regard.
Yeah, Texas, you look at the two top 5 teams they played this year, way back in week 1 against Ohio State, and then in the Georgia game a couple of weeks ago, they struggled to get anything going offensively. And yeah, the Oklahoma game, obviously a nice win for the Longhorns, but Texas scored 1 offensive touchdown in that football game. It's not like they exploded in that one. So yeah, it'll be a tall task. Obviously A&M with some really, really good personnel and a great coach on that side of the football. All right, one segment left in a Locked On crossover. We're talking Texas. We're talking Texas A&M. We will give a couple of keys to victory and then our game score predictions before we wrap things up right here on Locked On Longhorns and Locked On Aggies. Oh, but first, a shout out to our friends at GameTime. I will be at DKR Texas Memorial Stadium on Friday night, and I am pumped, and it's all possible thanks to GameTime. That's where I went to buy my tickets. That's where I always go to get my college football tickets. They are the best place. If you're looking for tickets to this game or any college football game all season long, GameTime is where you need to go. Why? Well, no hidden fees, no prices jumping at checkouts. What you see is what you pay every single time. You also get a view from your seat, so you know exactly what your vantage point is going to look like before you press purchase. GameTime is the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's faster, it's cheaper, and it's way less stressful than any other way that I bought tickets in the past. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download GameTime today. All right, final segment, Locked On crossover with Matt Galatzan of Locked On Aggies. I'm BK Brad Kellner with Locked On Longhorns. All right, Matt, before we give our game score prediction for Friday night, give me 1 or 2 keys to victory. I'll ask you the Aggie question. Texas A&M wins this game on Friday night. If they do what?
I'll give you 1 on offense and I'll give you 1 on defense. How about that? I think on offense, if Marcel Reed is on time, if they can protect him and those receivers can get some space, I think that their offense will thrive in Austin. That will be the key to me, protecting him, not letting Colin Simmons get back there and disrupt things, not letting Trey Moore or Ethan Burke get back there and disrupt things. Just stay disciplined along the offensive line. When you're in one-on-ones, I think those receivers will use that opportunity to get separation and get space and create explosive plays downfield. And it could be a long day for the Texas defense if those things happen. Defensively for Texas A&M, it's really just hold up in pass defense. If you can frustrate these wide receivers and you can play discipline in the secondary and keep those explosive plays from happening, particularly in that screen game to Ryan Wingo, I think Texas has run basically the same play to start the game every week over the last few weeks. If you stay disciplined in that screen game, you rally to the football and you're sure tackling, I think that you're going to have a lot more success against this Texas offense than these teams have had in the last few weeks.
There you go. All right, I'll give 2 for Texas. We'll start with the offensive side of the ball. The Longhorns have to stay ahead of the chains. I talked about this in my episode that I posted yesterday. Texas A&M's superpower is their third down defense. The Aggies are great at a lot of things. It's why they're 11-0. It's why they're number 3 in the country. But what they do better than anything else, and what they do better than anybody else in the country, is stop people on third down, giving up just a 22% conversion rate this season. You cannot be behind the chains. You can't have negative plays. You can't have penalties. If you do that, Matt, if it's 3rd and 10, if it's 3rd and 8 or longer, you might as well trot the punt team on the field because you're not converting that. Like, that's how good A&M has been defensively on third downs this year. If you're living in 2nd and 4, 3rd and 2, then you've got a shot to move the ball and put up points. But if you, again, are playing behind the sticks, it's going to be a long day for Arch Manning and company. And then, kind of similar to you for the Texas defense, like, they just got to tackle. Like, the Longhorns were a very sure tackling team for the first 2 months of the season, and in the last month, they have not been good at tackling at all. And you think about the supreme athletes that Texas A&M has, right? Like, Taylon Green was able to break a bunch of tackles. He juked Michael Taff out of his shoes on a play last week. Like, you've got to be sure at tackling. And then with those 2 weapons on the outside with Concepcion and Craver, we talked about it earlier. Those guys can turn a 7-yard reception into a 77-yard reception if you miss just 1 tackle. So, all right, you're going to give up some yards to this Aggie team. They're too good, but you cannot let small gains turn into big ones because you don't tackle. You got to gang tackle. You got to rally to the football. You got to swarm, all of those things that coaches talk about all the time. But you have to find a way to prevent those super explosive plays. Short tackling, I think, will go a long way into Texas finding a victory on Black Friday. All right, Matt, before we wrap things up, how about a game score prediction? Our friends at FanDuel have Texas A&M as a 2.5-point favorite. What happens 6:30 in Austin on Friday?
This is going to be one of the most interesting games of the season for both of these teams because I think that since week 1, this is the best team that Texas has played all season long. I think since Notre Dame, maybe even the entire season, this is the best team that Texas A&M has played. I personally think Texas is better than Notre Dame, so this will be an extremely tough matchup and a real litmus test, I guess, is the phrase I would use for Texas A&M in terms of where they really stack up.
Yep.
I really, really think that Texas A&M has the advantage offensively. I think that it's going to be a shootout, though. This is going to be a game that maybe similar to that Notre Dame game in South Bend, where one mistake can turn the tide of the game. You said Texas A&M is a 2.5-point favorite. I think it's going to be right around that area, Brad. I really do. I'm picking Texas A&M to win 38-35 in a shootout in Austin. Maybe a late touchdown puts them over the edge. Both these quarterbacks, I think, are going to have good days. And where Texas A&M is really going to make the difference is I think that they're just a more disciplined football team than Texas on both sides of the football.
Yeah, I'm with you in terms of a game in the 30s. I think both offenses are going to have some success. But, Matt, I'm a son of Longhorn parents. I'm a Texas grad. I will never pick Texas A&M to beat Texas for as long as I'm alive. So I'm going with the Longhorns. I love what Arch Manning has done as of late. I think the Texas defense will find a way to force a couple of turnovers in key spots. And I think Texas walks off Texas A&M with a field goal. I feel like we've seen that before. I'm going to go Longhorns 34-31. A&M obviously still makes the playoff, but their SEC title hopes are dashed. And then Texas fans are waiting for what's going to feel like 2 months until Sunday to see if the Horns get into the field of 12. But I'm going to go with the close Texas win, and you've got a close A&M win. Close is the constant there. Vegas feels that way too. I think we're set up for an instant classic later this week. All right, that's going to do it for our Locked On crossover. Y'all be sure to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, all of those great things. Matt's doing a great job covering Texas A&M. If you don't subscribe to Locked On Aggies, go ahead and do that. And, of course, if you'd be so kind, check out Locked On Longhorns as well. But that'll do it for us. Happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you out there. For Matt Galatzan, I am BK Brad Kellner, and this has been a Locked On crossover with Locked On Longhorns and Locked On Aggies. Oh, before we go, shout out to Doer. I absolutely love my Doer jeans. Matter of fact, I'm going to be wearing them tomorrow at Thanksgiving. Why? They look great. I don't want to look like a schmuck around a bunch of family and friends, but also they feel great. Of course, I want to be comfortable eating all of that food, watching football all day long. That's why I love my Doer jeans. It's the best of both worlds. You get that classic jeans wear style that you can dress up whenever you need to, but you also get the comfort and performance that you used to only be able to find in athletic wear. Doer is the best of both worlds. They've got their performance denim that gives you 5 times the stretch of traditional denim. So you can wear these wherever you are and you don't have to change your lifestyle at all. You're always going to look great and you're always going to feel great with Doer jeans. They really are the best of both worlds. Don't just take my word for it. Try them for yourself. They also make for a great holiday gift for somebody else as well. How about this great deal? Shopdoer.com/lockedonlonghorns. You go there, you're going to get 15% off your first order. Shopdoer.com/lockedonlonghorns. You're going to get 15% off the most comfortable pair of pants that you are ever going to own. One more time, shopdoer.com/lockedonlonghorns.